Jusqu'à quand c'était 18h, je fais la chose tous les jours. Je fais le 8h dans la nuit. Peut-être que je fais des plans, genre, ouais, des Prenez le point.
Hey, Amir.
Test. Hello? Okay, it's working. Okay. So we'll start again due to the interruption with the trouble with the audio. So we're starting the beginning of Eisvav, Ve'inyan. What's missing in the levels of bittul that we described before, which the Yidden finally received at the time of Matan Torah? So this is the Gemara. It says in Gemara, Amr Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. It said about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Shleiniach davar gadol v'davar katan. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai studied every aspect of Torah, every area of Torah, and all the different ways of Torah, and he didn't leave anything out from his studies. Not a great thing and not a small thing. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai learned the entire thing. And the Gemara explains what is davar gadol. Davar gadol is ma'aseh merkaveh. Davar gadol is what's called ma'aseh merkaveh. In other words, what's going the high spiritual levels, or the levels in the likus, the levels in getlichkeit, all the way up to the highest levels, like they're described in the merkaveh of Yechezkel. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai studied those matters, studied those parts of Torah. Davar katan. And what's a davar katan that we say Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai studied a davar katan? This is Havayis Abaya v'Rava, the questions of Abaya and Rava. So we see over here that Ma'aseh Merkaveh is called a davar gadol. Ma'aseh Merkaveh is called a great thing, and Havayis of Abaya and Rava, the questions of Abaya and Rava, those are called a small thing. Umavur v'Hamaimer, the Rebbe Marash explains in this Maimer that Tam sheMa'aseh Merkaveh nikra davar gadol hu. Why is Ma'aseh Merkaveh? Why is the story, or the matters, the description of the chariot? Why is it called a davar gadol? Through studying the inyanim of Merkaveh, in other words, the spiritual dimensions of Torah, the pnimius inyanim in Torah, the hidden aspects of Torah. The person who's riding on the Merkaveh. So first of all, Merkaveh. Sorry, now we're talking about a Merkaveh in the literal sense. Through riding a wagon or through riding a horse. The person who's riding the horse or the wagon, can reach a place can reach a place where he wouldn't be able to reach if he was just walking on his own without a horse. So too it's the same story in the Merkava Al at the top of page Shin. So too it is in the Merkava Al in the spiritual Merkava Shachayis Nesis Sakise. The Merkava is described by Yechezkel in the Nevuah of Yechezkel that we read in the Haftarah, and he describes over there seeing these forms, these creatures. B'pashtus it's malachim, and these malachim are carrying a chair or a throne, and then v'esa adam sha'ala kisei, and then there's a person who's on this chair, and the chayis, the malachim, are carrying this chair up to a higher level. L'bchinas lo adam. They carry the person who's sitting on the chair of the merkava, of the chariot. They carry him to a level of lo adam. He's in the level of adam, and they carry him up to a level of lo adam. And we're going to explain soon of lo adam, lo, not a person. In other words, something that's lo adam, something that's beyond a person. He's going to explain. In other words, this level of lo adam is a level that a person compared to this level is considered to be a limited small thing. We're going to see. And the primary time where the Merkava is elevated to a level of lo adam, that's in the Merkava of the Avos, the Merkava of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, like it says Avos in the Merkava, which this is the Merkava d'Atzilus, the Merkava of Atzilus. We'll explain in a moment. When the Merkava of Biyah is elevated to a higher level, to the level of Lo Adam, so the Merkava of Biyah is elevated to a place that's higher than Biyah. However, it's still in Seder Ishtalshlus. However, through the Merkava of the Avis, which this is the Merkava d'Atzilus, Nasa Aliyah d'Bchinas Adam d'Atzilus, d'Bchinas Lo Adam Shalamaylam Etzilus, which this is Arich. The Aliyah of the person of the Bchinas Adam of Atzilus is to the level of Lo Adam, which is higher than Atzilus. In other words, it's just higher than Ishtalshus, which is the level of Arich. So the details of what he discussed over here is not so megea to the continuation, to the Hemshech of the Maimer. However, just in short, it's explained in Chassidus and in Kabbalah that there's many levels of Merkava. For example, we have the Merkava that's described by Yechezkel Hanavi, and there's also the Merkava that's described by Yeshaya Hanavi. Yeshaya also has a Nevuah that discusses the Merkava. However, the Merkava of Yechezkel is on a lower level, is in the level of Biyah, and the Merkava of Yeshaya is in Atzilus. So you have Merkava in every world. In every world you have the level of Merkava, and the Merkava of every world lifts the Adam who's sitting on the chair in that world, lifts the Madrega that's called an Adam, that's called a person, lifts him up to a level that's hard. It's working, I checked. Lifts the person to a level that's to a level of Lo Adam that compared to his level, he now reached a level that's beyond and greater than Adam. However, in all of these levels, you can't really call it a true aliyah compared to the ultimate Merkava. Why? Because in all of these levels, Taka, the person, the Adam, was lifted to a higher level. However, he remained within his Shtalshalos. So if in the Merkava of Biyah, in the Merkava, let's say, of the highest world in Biyah, in the world of Bria, so when that Merkava has a Ha'ala, I'm assuming that the Ha'ala is to the world of Atzilus. But the world of Atzilus is still in Seder Hishtalshalos. So therefore, it's not a true aliyah, it's not a true complete difference and change in situation. Before you were in Seder Shtalshalos, and now you're still in Seder Shtalshalos. However, the Merkava of Atzilus, when the Adam that's in the Merkava of Atzilus is lifted up to the level of Lo Adam, so now we switched. He's lifted up from the Madrega of Atzilus to the Madrega of Arich, to the Eilim of Makifim. In other words, he's lifted up to a place that's higher than Hishtalshalos, completely and truly higher than before he was. Before he was in his Seder Hishtalshalos, and now he's completely higher than Hishtalshalos. So that's what. So the Rebbe points out that the true aliyah that happens in the Merkava of the Avos. The Avos were a Merkava to the Midas of Atzilus. Avram Avinu was a merkava to the middle of Chesed. Yitzchak Avinu was a merkava to the middle of Gvura, and Yaakov was a merkava to the middle of Tiferes. And in Kabbalah, and it's brought down in the Maim of Nebuch Marash, you have the different setups, different arrangements of the Sfiris. So you have one setup where you have Chachme, Chesed, and Netzach on the right side, and then you have Binah, Gvura, and Hoid on the left side, and then you have Das and Tiferes in the middle. So Avram Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, and Yaakov Avinu together encompassed within them the entire tzura, the entire image of Atzilus, of the Midas, and even of the Meichin of Atzilus. And each one of them was a merkava to their particular line of spheres in Atzilus. And by what does it mean that they were a merkava? So it says, for example, Avraham Avinu, he spread Getlichkeit in this world, which is the idea of bringing a likus down into this world, and he did it with Mesiris Nefesh. And since he did this work with Mesiris Nefesh, so therefore he became the merkava. He became like the horse, like the chariot that carried Chesed Atzilus to a higher place. It lifted up Chesed Atzilus. The Adam refers to the spheres of Atzilus. And Avram Avinu's Aveda, and Yitzchak's Aveda, and Yaakov Avinu's Aveda lifted up all of the spheres of Atzilus to higher than Atzilus. So this is the Merkava of the Avis. And that's why the Merkava is called Davar Gadol. Why is it called Davar Gadol? The level of Adam, which is considered the small face. In other words, why is it considered the small face? Because in Madrigas of Kedusha, when you start talking about already the spheres of Atzilus, so everything has a definition. Before Seder Ishtalshlus in Arich, nothing had definition. What does definition mean? Definition means that you limit something. You make it smaller than what it was before. It can't be everything and everywhere. You have to contain it within a certain description, within a certain explanation, within a certain boundary. Chesed has to be only Chesed. If Chesed is Gvura also, so it's no longer Chesed. You can't have Chesed without setting boundaries and parameters to say that this is the area where Chesed is. That Chesed is a word of kindness, of giving, of drawing down. These are all attributes of Chesed. And if you take those boundaries away, you no longer have Chesed. And the same thing with Gvura. Gvura is the idea of aliyah, of going upwards, and of constricting, not of spreading forth the ashpa. If you remove those descriptions and those definitions from Gvura, you no longer have Gvura. So everything that exists in the spheres is the Eir Ampin. It's a small dimension and aspect of the Eir Sof that was limited, mitzumtzum, more mitzumtzum, and more mitzumtzum, until it came to these things, to these spheres that the Eir Sof are completely limited. So that's why it's a place of katnus. It's a Eir Ampin. It's a small face. And the Merkava is Gadol. Why is the chariot big? Why is the wagon or the horse that carries the person big? Because it lifts up these spheres to a place of greatness. What's a place of greatness? Arich is a place of greatness. Over there, it's in the elements of Ein Sof. It's in the elements of infinity. Over there, you don't have such limits on the light of the Eivishter that you have to say that this light is only Chesed, this light is only Gvura. It's an infinite light that is everywhere and in every way and isn't limited by any specific definition. And that's Taka greatness. That's Taka something that's big and unlimited. So Adam, the spheres of Atzilus, which is Zeir, Ampin, Umchinas, Katnus, V'tzimtzum. Validei HaMerkava, and through the Merkava of Atzilus, they carry up Humis Ala, L'Bchinas Arich, and it becomes Gadol. So that's the Davar Gadol Mazel Tov.
Amen.
Beautiful. So sein Binin Adeyad.
Amen.
So this is the Davar Gadol. This is the Davar Gadol that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai learned. What was the Davar Katan? What was the small thing that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai learned? The Havayas of Abaya and Rava, the questions of Abaya and Rava. You can ask a question, by the way. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was a Tana. Abaya and Rava, Tana. He was one of the Tanoim. Abaya and Rava were Amiroim. Yeah, so what does the Gemara mean that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai learned the Havayas, the questions of Abaya and Rava? So Rashi on the Gemara explains right away that all of the questions that Abaya and Rava had, he thought of those questions. In other words, he learned Torah so thoroughly that all of the questions, as somebody says, that you have to ask somebody up who knows the whole Shas. You can't go 4 blot in Shas without coming across either Abaya or Rava. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'll call upon him. Abaya and Rava comprise the largest part of the discussions in Gemara is comprised of the discussions of Abaya and Rava. Of course, in the mind of the Ikar of Torah Shabbat Bet. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai learned Torah so thoroughly that all of the questions that later on occurred to Abaya and Rava, he already thought about them. As he was learning the Mishnayos, he didn't even have the Gemara. He didn't have the whole development of that occurred over several generations, where things were taken down into more detail and more specialized and more specific. He learned it still in the Ifn of Mishnayos, and yet he was so thorough that he thought of all of the possible types of situations and scenarios that could happen, which led to Abaya and Rava having all of their questions. That's how thoroughly learned Torah. So, but this is called Davar Katan. This is called something small. Afshu Ikar b'Torah Shabbat Peh, even though the Havayas of Abaya and Rava is Ikar in Torah Shabbat Peh, it comprises so much of Torah Shabbat Peh. Why? Who can't hilchas HaTorah nislapshu b'dvarim ketanim? Because the halachas of Torah were enclosed. In other words, they were lowered and drawn down into small things. What do we mean when we say small things? In addition to the fact that the mitzvahs were enclosed in physical things. For example, the mitzvah of lulav was enclosed in the physical branches of the lulav. The mitzvahs of trumas were enclosed in the physical fruits and vegetables, fruits. The mitzvahs of karbanis were enclosed in physical animals. So it was all enclosed in gashmistic things. Gashmistic things are very, very small. One malach is greater than the entire universe. One detail in the Illumis Elyonim, in the spiritual worlds, is greater than all of the physical matters. A physical thing, it has a beginning, it has an end, it has a finite space within which it can exist. It has a very, very finite type of existence. Gashmim are a davar katan. So first of all, but in addition to the fact that the mitzvahs can be called Dvarim Ktanim because they were enclosed in Dvarim Gashmiyim, there's another reason. The Eshbachol mitzvah kama prate dinim. In every mitzvah, you have a myriad of dinim, of details, of detailed dinim about this mitzvah. For example, in Truma, it says that there's 5 people who are not allowed to, who can't perform, who can't be teirim. In other words, who can't take parts of the fruits and declare them and consecrate them and turn them into truma. Even if they did it, even if they took the fruits and they said this is truma, it doesn't count as b'chal not truma. Right? It has to be a gadol, it has to be a bardas v'chulu. And then it says, then there's another person who lechatchila he shouldn't, but if he does, it does become truma. And the same thing with the mitzvah of lulav and esrig. If somebody benches lulav and esrig on a lulav where the branches aren't all brought together, or if the tip of the lulav is broken, or if the lulav is stolen, or if the lulav is rotted. There's so many different dinim, and there's the time when you have to bench lulav. There's so many different dinim that go together that are part of this one mitzvah. In other words, you have the one mitzvah of the Eibishter that you should shake lulav and esrik. This is the ratzon of the Eibishter. He wants you to shake lulav and esrik. But within this ratzon, it was subdivided into so many different details. So therefore, it's called a davar katan, because it was taken apart into small little details upon details upon details that you have in every single mitzvah. We'll do the brackets fast. So according to this, and this description that the Gemara gives us, that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai went through the entire study of Torah, from the greatest to the smallest, from the Ma'aser Merkava, from the Davar Gadol to the Davar Katan. So we see that it's a difference from one extreme to the other extreme. Dinin Merkava, the Davar Gadol, which is Ma'aser Merkava, is the person leaving his limitations. Or not the person, the level that's called Adam, the essence of Atzilus, where each Sfira has its own definition, its own boundaries. They leave their limited state, and they're brought up to the level of lo yodam. In other words, they reach libchinas loigvul, to the level of bligvul, which this is a davar gadol, which only now can we call it a great thing. Because the truth, if you want to have something that's truly great, you must have something that's completely unlimited. Like he explains in the Arab 47, because if you have something that's very big, the question is, what's very big? If you talk to a person, you tell them, picture in your head something very, very big. That's, picture up some mountain. Say to him, a mountain is very big. Yeah, he says, look, I mean, you could fit the entire city with all the cars and all of the streets and all of the houses. You could fit in the mountain. It's very big. Say to him, what about the mountain range? What about the continent? And what about the planet? And what about the sun and the solar system and this galaxy and all the galaxies in the universe? In other words, if you're talking about physical things, you can never really have something big. You call it big relative to other things, because a physical thing is limited. It has boundaries. If it's limited, so sooner or later there will be something that's bigger than it. It's the biggest thing within the context where you're looking at it. But in a different context, you'll find something even bigger than it. True greatness, to call something big, is only if you leave the entire concept of boundaries and limitations. And for that, you have to leave Seder Hishtalshlus, to have no boundaries and no limitations. Now it's big, now it's great, because it goes on forever. And for that, you have to leave Seder Hishtalshlus.
I was going to say that Arafat is great in terms of what it can accomplish. So for example, the forgiving of Avedis can only happen over there. That's the source of Rachamim. That it can, on lower levels, it couldn't happen. But it's, that event, Avedis can be forgiven only from that realm.
Right, but to start from the other way around, it's because it's an unlimited realm. That's why it can forgive us. It's not that we call it. It's not that we call it unlimited because it can forgive us. It's because in general, it's a concept that's beyond boundaries and beyond limitations. So therefore it can. Yeah. Okay, and then so that's one extreme where we leave virtually every limitation. And what's our goal in the questions of Abaya and Rava, where we get into the nitty-gritty of every detail of every one of the mitzvahs, of every one of the ritzainus of the Eibishter, he slaps us Ratzon Elyon. We take the Ratzon Elyon, and the Ratzon Elyon is drawn down, which is a vart of bligvul, b'dvarim ugbalim, into a davar katan. Abaya and Rava went and took the Ratzon Elyon, or the Ratzon Elyon Chatchila was drawn down into mitzvahs, but Abaya and Rava took it even further and further. A mitzvah that before we only had a few details in what the mitzvah means and how to understand the mitzvah, Abaya and Rava came up with tens and hundreds and thousands of new scenarios across the whole Shas where they drew down the mitzvahs into even smaller, more specific, more particular details and situations. So this is so we're going in two different extremes. In Ma'aseh Merkava, we're going to leave our limitations. And in the Havayis of Abaya and Rava, we're drawing the Ratzon Elyon into further limitations. Okay.
Davar Gadol is basically Chassidus, and that's.
No. You'll see. No, you're going in the wrong direction. Next year, Mitzvah Hashem. And he continues in the Maimer. The Rebbe Marash continues in his Maimer. Another reason why the questions and discussions of Abaya and Rava is called a Davar Katan. Because what is this? This is Torah. So, sorry, you were on to the next point that he gives, but we'll see later. That's Pshat Davar Katan, because the Abayis of Abaya and Rava are talking about the Nigla de Torah, and even if you're going to say that it includes the Nister of Torah, but still it's the Torah that we have before Mashiach comes. And the Torah that we have before Mashiach comes is considered a small thing, which will be revealed when Mashiach comes. The Matan Torah is called the engagement of the Yidden to the Eibishter, and when Mashiach will come, will be the Nisuin, will be the marriage. And just like an engagement compared to a marriage is a small thing, so too the Torah, the parts, the amount of Torah, and the depth of Torah that was revealed to us during Matan Torah is only compared, is a small thing, is only compared to an engagement compared to the amount of Torah that will be revealed to us when Mashiach will come. Not to be confused that it's going to be a new Torah, Chas Shalom. It's still going to be a part of the Torah that was given to us by Matan Torah, but it wasn't revealed to us then at Matan Torah. When Mashiach will come, the complete story of what was revealed to us during Matan Torah will be given to us. So that's the second reason why it's called a Davar Katan, because it's small compared to the Torah that will be La'asid Lavei. And then he gives the third reason, because the Torah is a mashal, is a parable, and is a garment to the Ein Sof that's enclosed in the Torah. By understanding Torah, we begin to get a grasp and a comprehension of the Ein Sof of the Eibishter, because it's enclosed in the Torah. That's why the Torah is called the mashal of, or the ancient mashal, like it's explained in Chassidus, that shehi mashal ulevush lebchinas kadmoni shalelim. Why do we use the words kadmoni? Kadmoni is a reference to kadmoni shalelim. The ancient mashal is a reference to the word kadmoni shears sheirish, and can be understood to mean kadmoni shalelim, the one who preceded the world. In other words, not ancient as in old, but the one who came before. Kadmoni shalelim. The Torah is a mashal on the Eibishter who preceded the world. What's that? Yes, precisely. Umashal legabe nimshal. Sorry.
How does that fit into Adam Kadmon?
I don't know. But they're two different. They're two separate
Even though
concepts.
we share the Kadmon.
This you have to have. I can't make up my own stuff. I never saw anything about it, so I don't know. So if Torah is a mashal to the Ein Sof, so it's a small thing, because the mashal, the parable, is small compared to the thing that the mashal is trying to explain. That's why we use a mashal, because we can't quite understand the thing itself. So we use a mashal which is on a much lower level. It's much smaller than the thing we're trying to understand. So from this we see clearly that a mashal is small compared to the thing that it's trying to explain. So if the Torah is a mashal on the Eibishter, so the Torah is a small thing compared to the Eibishter. Okay, let's see now a little bit more detail in the difference between these three things. The reason that the Rebbe Marash gives that the bias of the Havayis of Abaye and Rava is called a Davar Katan, because the Torah clothed itself in small things, in many specific and particular details. The reason why Torah is called a katan, the reason why Torah is called a small thing, is only because of the way the Torah enclosed itself into all of these details. But you can't call Torah itself a davar katan. However, and therefore the Rebbe Marash adds that the Torah that we have today is a small thing compared to the previous Torah that we'll have la'asid lavei. V'gam, he also adds davar katan legabe Ein Sof HaMelubos. The third reason that it's a small thing compared to the thing that it serves as a mashal for. It's a mashal for the Ein Sof, and it's small compared to the Ein Sof. According to these reasons, HaTorah davar katan legam b'negel HaTorah atzma. Now we're calling Torah itself small, not the garment, not that the garments of Torah are small, but that the Torah itself is small. And we'll see soon why that's important. We'll continue now to Zayin. We'll do the first paragraph in Zayin. Later on in the Maimer, the Marash gives another explanation of why the Torah is called a davar katan, a small thing. It's called a davar katan because of its tremendous bittul to the Ein Sof that's enclosed within it.
So that the union of the Abaye and the Rava, that they brought it down to Pratim of Pratim, that means they brought it that deeply down into Olam Hazeh, which is the union of halachas, how you do things in this world. But the source is something of Arei Sof.
Correct. But that's not what he's saying over here now. Over here, what he's saying is an additional point. That the halachas, a new point. Yes, that the halachas, not to do with Abaye and Rava, that the halachas are completely and absolutely bottled to the Ein Sof that's enclosed in them. We'll get to that, Mitzvah Hashem, next year. We'll soon see what that means. But the halachas are completely bought. The K'meish limit Adam tzarich bitul. Just like when a yid learns Torah, he has to do it in a ifin of bitul, like it says tam l'sheni imrasecha, that my tongue should just answer after your words. In other words, it's not my Torah. I'm merely repeating what the Eibishter is saying. I'm just repeating what the Eibishter is reading. So too, the halachas of the Torah themselves, they are also in complete and absolute bittul to the Ein Sof that's enclosed in them. If you're going to title the Torah davar katan by understanding katnus in the simple sense, that it's a small thing. So it's called a small thing in a relative way. It's small relative to other things, like we discussed earlier. However, if you're going to say that Torah is a davar katan, because the halachas are completely bottled to the Ein Sof that's enclosed in them, so hakatnus bittul hu bayatzme. So the bittul and the smallness of the Torah isn't relative to other things, is that the Torah itself, it feels and is in a situation and a condition of being small. It's bebittul to the Eibishter. It's in a bechina of katnus to the Eibishter. And that's a more optimistic reason why Torah is called a davar katan, because it's completely and absolutely bottled to the Eibishter. It's small to the Eibishter. If so, if we now reached an explanation that why it can Torah be called a davar katan, the Rebbe Marash told us because it's bottled to the Eibishter. A wagon and the horses that draw the wagon are also bottled to the wagon driver and to the horseman. And notwithstanding the fact that it's completely bottled, we still call it a davar gadol. The Mitzvah Hashem next week we'll see why, with all of its bittul, the Merkava is still considered a davar gadol compared to the bittul of halachas of Torah. That dafke that we can call a davar katan. Dafke that you could say is taka emesa bittul, and so too by the Yidden who learn Torah. Mitzvah Hashem in next year.